Okay, just get light. Houston, be advised the diesel is go today. This is Houston, roger out. Let me know when it converts. Yeah, they're finally getting your window like that. Let's get light first. Steering first, yep. 11 Houston, your guidance is...
Welcome back to the Cosmosphere podcast. This is episode 16. I'm your host, John Molnix, and I'm a volunteer here at the Cosmosphere. We're back from what was an unexpected couple of month-long hiatus. I had a career change, and I'm just now getting back to the point where I have time to volunteer. All of us here appreciate your patience in getting these episodes out. We will be coming back to the monthly schedule from here on out. I drove out to Kansas earlier this week so I could come to the Cosmosphere's SpaceWorks facility to see the MOCR Consoles one last time before they head back to Houston. In today's episode, you're going to hear my conversation with Jack Graber, the Vice President of Exhibits and Technology here at the Cosmosphere. We were in the SpaceWorks facility, so there is going to be some echo, but the reason we were seated in the SpaceWorks facility is we were actually using the Flight Director's Console, the same one used by Gene Kranz, Glenn Lunny, Jerry Griffin, Milt Windler, and many more flight directors. That was one of the coolest experiences I have ever had while doing this podcast, so bear with us on that audio. It's a little bit more echoey than normal, but the setting for doing that recording was just unbeatable. Be sure to check out the show notes for pictures of the recording setup that we had for today's episode. After we hear from Jack, you'll also hear from Carla. She's got a lot of news about what's going on at the Cosmosphere this summer. With the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11 rapidly approaching, there is going to be a ton of incredible things to do here at the Cosmosphere, so be sure to make a trip out here during the Apollo 11 celebrations. Also, here's a quick note on some new audio you're going to hear in these episodes going forward. I recorded some buttons and switches on the Flight Director's Console, and you're going to hear these sounds during the new segment transitions we're rolling out in the podcast. I figured I needed to record these switches since the consoles will no longer be accessible to the public once they return to Johnson Space Center.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for powered descent. Retro? Go. FIDO? Go. Guidance? Go. Control? Go. Telcom? Go. GNC? Go. Ecom? Go. Surgeon? Go. Capcom, we're go for powered descent.
So I was lucky enough to be at SpaceWorks when the first set of consoles was delivered back in January of 2018. We've come a long way since then. As we're wrapping up for the MOCR restoration project, we want to be able to take some time to sit down and talk about all of the cool things that you've learned over the past year and a half as part of this project. So thanks for coming back on the podcast.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. Enjoy being here.
For sure. First off, on behalf of all the space history buffs, thank you for doing this project, because this is really, it's preserving a piece of NASA history that is super important.
Oh, it is. I agree. And I'm really glad that Johnson Space Center finally got the okay and they were able to get the funding and everything to do it, because, the condition it was in, a year and a half ago, was like you say, it was just too bad. The importance of the room, while, Armstrong and those guys that walked on the moon were not there, it was just as important, as that piece of it. So it may not have gotten all the flash, but it had the bang. Let's put it that way.
For sure. And as you're wrapping up, how does it feel to be pretty much done? There's a few little loose ends, I think, to do, but how does it feel? It
feels really good. You still look at it, you come in and you're like, what else can we do? What else? You can always do more, it type of thing that never ends. But no, it feels really good. I'm sad to see it go. It's been a really fun project. Wish I could have it for another 18 months. But at the same time, you're glad to see it done. You're excited to get it down there and put it back the way it was. So,
well, and other projects, how does this project compare to everything else that you've done at SpaceWorks?
It's been different for sure. We've done a lot more spacecraft, and so you have more. This has been more of a longer span of a project. doing the Geminis, restoring some of the Geminis, some of the Apollos for sure is really cool, the stuff that's been in space. Yeah. But this is it's been a unique project in itself, is, what we're restoring and the magnitude of it. And so it's been great. It's been exciting. It's been a lot of fun. And love to do one again.
So, as part of the project, you've talked to listeners before about some of the cool things that have been found while restoring. Can you talk about a couple of your favorite pieces?
Yeah, probably some of the stuff. We didn't really find a whole lot of historical stuff, simply because you have to remember these were used clear through shuttles, so they were inspected every year. Parts were inspected. There were stickers that we had to take off that said inspected 2018, 2017, 16, all the way to 19, whenever.
Wow.
So yeah, even though they weren't being used, somebody came and always did an inspection on them every year, because a lot of the stuff had part numbers that were in inventory, so they had to make sure that all of the inventory was good every year and that kind of stuff. So we didn't necessarily find just a lot of historical stuff, because that stuff wasn't left alone. Some of the coolest stuff that we found had to do with the technology in it. Some of the wiring, some of the modules, some of the digit displays. When we had a monitor that was actually used in the Apollo era, we didn't have enough to put back, but we had one. And the way that they would light the numbers was an individual number on a lens that was lit by an individual bulb behind it. So today, when you see numbers lit up and it's like a dot matrix display, or it's type of thing, this basically was like shining a flashlight through a lens that had the number 4 or 5 on it, and then it would display up on the channel indicator. And so some of that stuff was really cool, the technology they had that was, quote, cutting edge. And it was, and you're just like, wow, that's really, but
pretty
that
ingenious.
was some of the coolest stuff, was the stuff behind the panels for us.
Well, and that took up a lot of space. Generated a lot of heat. So,
a lot of weight. Yeah. I mean, the pieces were, the power supplies, the units themselves, everything was big, bulky, heavy. Thus, the consoles, the way they are, all the ventilation the consoles had, that type of thing. So, yeah, compared to what we use today, you can buy a flash drive, I think I saw the other day, you can now buy a 1 terabyte micro SD card, that would have, you could have stored everything they had, and probably at NASA, So, you're talking something that the size of smaller than a dime, So
it's amazing how much has changed. And speaking of change, part of the restoration for these is making sure that future generations can enjoy them.
Sure.
So that necessitated a few things, like the switch from CRTs to LCD panels. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So when we started this out, one of the things we also had to do was the Historical Society was there, and we had to come to an agreement with them. I don't know if that's the best phrase, but basically align with them as what we were going to use, what we were going to do with them, and that type of thing. And so we all agreed that because the old CRTs, especially, there were 2 different CRTs, maybe even 3, but 2 that we know of that were used between the Apollo shuttle and then what we put in now. And so the Apollo ones are even older than what were in there when we got these in January of 2000. Those were the shuttle era monitors, and they were a little bit different shape on the front. They didn't have the channel indicator. But anyway, the Apollo ones were the old tube CRTs. And so we all, we know that, especially to use those, why they may turn on, you don't know if they're going to turn on tomorrow. Yeah. You may be able to get some tubes on eBay or something like that and find some parts, but you're not going to find, I don't remember the exact monitor count, but you're not going to find enough for every monitor in all the consoles. So in order to do that, in order to replicate, we knew we were going to have to switch them to something more reliable.
Sure.
And that's why we went with the LCDs, and we made them retrofit. We got a great company we work with. And we're able to do that just for reliability so that they can be there. And the other thing is they're maintainable. Yeah. So if one goes out, we can get another one and do that, where the other ones, they're hard to come by.
Well, and the Apollo era CRT monitors were really special. for the time, it was incredible. Like you were talking about the resolution last time I was here. So if you could just share.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff was cutting edge, and why, you look at it and stuff, but like the monitors had double the resolution than the normal one would, double lines of resolution for the data and everything to make it as sharp and as clear. Because these guys had, astronauts' lives on the line. And so I'm sure, they didn't want to mistake an 8 for a 3 or a 7 for a 1, that type of thing. So these guys had to have accurate information and be sure of everything. There was no guesswork, so there couldn't be any guesswork. And the more you learn about even stuff like the reentry angle and all that kind of stuff, it had to be right. There wasn't, well, I think so, let's try it, There wasn't any of that. So, yeah. So it was pretty neat.
Well, and the other thing, too, since we're on kind of a technical topic here, is the other, a lot of the old switches and everything. It wasn't just the CRT tubes that were replaced. The lights for all of the buttons on the panels, those went from incandescent bulbs to LEDs.
Right, correct. Yeah, and one of the reasons, too, again, for longevity, that thing, and also for heat. And they would get hot enough that you could feel it on your fingertip, and then, it would even warp the lenses a little bit. So they got hot, and the power consumption. Wish your reader, wish your listeners, wish I had a picture. We've sent all the old power supplies back, but we literally had a power supply, basically the size of your home stereo. Of a home stereo receiver, maybe even a little bit bigger, that powered these things at 24 volts. And now we have a power supply that powers all the lights that we have lit on a console the size of a matchbox, and it's down to 5 volts. And so it's just the technology is just, it's amazing. But so again, working with the Historical Society, making sure we can preserve these things, LED is going to last a lot longer, going to take a long time to burn out, that type of thing. So, and again, for maintainability, we can still get more LEDs.
Yep.
I'm sure you can still get incandescents too, but just,
longer term.
Yeah, longer term. So there were some of that there had to be a little bit of that trade-off from being, quote, 100% historically accurate to also, hey, these things have to, last a little while.
Sure. And that's actually kind of what I want to talk about next, is these consoles were used from the beginning of Apollo up through the early years of the shuttle program. So, because of that, they were designed to support multiple types of missions. So there are going to be instances on these panels where something is, how it was during the shuttle program, and talk about the reasons why those pieces weren't replaced.
Sure. So as we sat down and we looked at these things, we said, all right, we have this console. They were used actually from the Gemini, some of the latter Gemini missions, all the way into the shuttle. And we were like, okay, so we're picking Apollo 11, obviously, because that's a significant moment in time. Man landed on the moon, right? One of the questions that came up was, well, hey, what about Gemini? What about shuttle? How are we going to represent that? What are we just going to forget completely about that? What about, because it was used for shuttle, even Challenger was in the Challenger mission. So while, yes, we configured the consoles for Apollo 15 and the room is being set for Apollo 11, there were some components that were very, very close. There are a few differences, but were original to the console. And so we said, you know what? We're going to leave those in as kind of a tribute to shuttle. As to the other programs, it's very, very close. Hopefully, people understand that, we're trying to tribute, like I said, hey, this is a shuttle piece. While it may not be necessarily displayed like that, that was the whole reasoning behind it was it is original to the console. And that way we don't remake everything. We didn't refab every piece, that there are some real, true, honest-to-God working pieces that are left in the console as much as we could.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I think you've struck a great balance between all of those constraints. So
yeah. Well, thanks. Yeah, it was, like I said, it was kind of a unique challenge because, the shuttle program was important as well, and we don't just want to completely forget about it. Yeah, it's not walking on the moon, but
there was a lot of important firsts.
Yeah, and we learned a bunch of information from the shuttle missions, a lot from those. So
most definitely.
Very important.
If you had to pick a favorite console, which one would it be?
Man, probably I'll give it 2. The Inco is probably one of our favorites because if you look at what it was when it came and what it is now, they completely changed. It was a 3-bay when we got it. It wasn't even the right size. We had to get a shell of one and remake things and everything, and it's one of the busiest ones. So yeah, while the flight director one is cool, come on, it's the flight directors, The Inco is really pretty cool.
And is that the one at the end over there?
Yeah, that's the one at the end. I've met Ed Vidal,
okay.
And so, and I've met Gene too, and they're just tremendous guys. I mean, they're just all tremendous people. They really are. They're, phenomenal. It's cool to, have met that person that sat behind it, and then make it and go, I met that, that's pretty cool.
I agree. Every time I see these consoles in here, it just, you get chills just knowing everything that was done with these machines. That's just incredible.
Yeah. And, and even, that's one of the things that we kind of sit back sometimes and you don't, think of all the emotions that went in from Gemini to landing on the moon to Apollo 13 to the Challenger, all the emotions and people that sat behind these things, wow, it's just overwhelming a little bit, and you just kind of, wow.
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming.
What an institution,
yeah. Well, we're here recording in SpaceWorks, and we're actually, it's radio, so you can't see it, but we are actually at the flight director's console, which
I
have to say, that's probably the coolest place I've ever recorded and ever will record. The podcast.
One of our biggest challenges, really, and at some point in time, we kind of had to pull the trigger and kind of go with maybe like a gut feeling or that type of thing. Was what is historically accurate and what is your proof in a sense? Because obviously during Apollo 11, they didn't want a lot of, especially during the landing, I'm sure there was not a lot of people with cameras and media walking around saying, move out of the way, let me get a picture of your, console. And so, you have images that we got from NASA that you can find a few online, still images, that will have some documentation of, for example, what buttons were on, what channel was selected, what was on the monitor. But all that stuff changed in a moment in time, people were calling other people and, might have switched to screen, and a channel and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the challenge too, was, okay, we have 3 pictures. Which one do we pick for the phone buttons? To which ones do we light up? And so you'd find the best one you could, and it's a representation of what it would have looked like during the mission. Is it the end all be all of what it looked like? No, it's just simply a representation of, hey, this is what it would have looked like with the phone on. These are some of the buttons that would have been on. Obviously, not all of them would have been on. None of them would have been on, that type of thing. And so that was our goal with the historical side and everything, was to be a representation of a working console.
Well, and seeing these lit up for the first time, like all of them yesterday.
Yeah.
It was, I've seen, pictures and video, and it got me as close as I think I'll ever be in terms of that historical flavor. So I think you did a great job.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I really appreciate it. And it's going to be really exciting because as you look at the pictures like we have here, I know your listeners can't see, we have a couple of pictures here of Gene Kranz sitting behind the console, and you see all the paraphernalia that's on it: books, coffee mugs, ashtrays, folders, papers everywhere, So, that's the other thing we're really looking forward to, is getting that room, getting all the consoles back in the room, getting them lit up, and then getting, all that stuff on it, because that is part of the room. They weren't blank consoles, the desks cleared off. The guys are working behind them, working hard.
A lot of smoke too. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, a lot of smoke. Oh yeah.
Oh goodness. Well, Jack, I really thank you for taking the time again. This has just been such a treat to see these.
Oh yeah, no.
Transformed.
Glad you could come out, and glad to have you out here, and we'll have you out here some more, and we look forward to it. And hope your listeners, if they get down to Houston once this gets installed, enjoy it, and it's for you guys. So we're happy to do it.
Thank you. And, this isn't the last we'll hear from you, because there's some cool stuff in the works that I don't think we can share yet.
There is. Yeah, there's some stuff that that NASA, the Smithsonian's been having, hang around for quite a while, that we're going to be able to work on and have here at SpaceWorks. And so we will sure keep you posted and let you and your listeners know, because it's exciting too. A lot of this history stuff just it's neat, and what a time in America, and it's just really neat. So we hope you guys tune in and enjoy, and we'll keep you posted.
Awesome. Thanks, Jack.
You bet. Have a great one.
Okay, all flight controllers, go for landing. Retro. Go. Fido. Go. Guidance. Go. Control.
And
Telcom. Go.
control
GNC. Go. Ecom.
Copy.
Go. Surgeon. Go. Capcom, we're go for landing.
Eagle, Houston, you're a go for landing, over.
It has been a long time since I've spoken with Carla due to some scheduling issues on my end, so welcome back to the podcast, Carla. You've got a lot of news for us today.
We have so much going on, John. It's really exciting. We're gearing up for a very spacey summer, if you will.
Excellent.
So starting off just even this week, our camps get going. So we'll see upwards of 1,100 campers throughout the summer. We still do have some camp slots open. So if you're interested, and that even means you, for the adults, we have our adult astronaut adventure camp that's happening again. But like every summer, camps from second grade through high school with an aerospace focus. So you can learn as a young child about our solar system and about aliens and about life on another planet like Mars, all the way up through your traveling camps where kiddos get to go to Houston and to California to visit major space centers, learn scuba diving, those kinds of things. So
lots of fun stuff. And the adult astronaut adventure is a lot of fun. I would definitely recommend, if the older listeners out there, to come out to Kansas, because there's going to be some other awesome things at the Cosmosphere besides the adult astronaut adventure. So
yes, we have a lot going on. We've already got up a couple of exhibits and some anniversary content. So for the Apollo 11 50th anniversary that's happening in July, we have a brand new Rotunda exhibit. So at the top of our museum stairs, it's called We Choose to Go to the Moon. You can see artifacts there. You can learn more about the mission. We have artifacts from Apollo 11 highlighted on a scavenger hunt. You can pick those scavenger hunt papers up at our box office or in our lobby. Go through the museum and see if you can find all of our Apollo 11 artifacts. We also have some Apollo era artifacts like our White Room that are rather unique. So we've highlighted those on that same flyer as well. You can check them out online on our website too. We're also encouraging our visitors to fill out a Where Were You When paper about the moon landing. So if you were live and present for the moon landing, tell us about it. And if you weren't, what would have been your favorite or famous quote as a first person on the moon? So we'll have that availability or that activity out for children and adults to participate in all summer long, and then we'll hang them up on our celebration wall, is what we're calling it.
Awesome.
In the lobby. We have a new interactive exhibit called Apollo Redux. So this is using one of our restored mission control consoles, and it highlights the job of mission control during the Apollo era and today. So it's a retrospective look and a present day look at what mission control does. You'll hear oral histories from mission controllers of the Apollo era. You get to sit at that console and interact with several of the buttons and switches and levers on it. You get to read about the, famous missions that those consoles were a piece of. And, as John and I were speaking about, it's pretty cool to be able to say you sat at the same place where someone in mission control sat when we landed on the moon.
Most definitely. Still get goosebumps.
It's pretty cool. We also have a new documentary that just started this last weekend. It's called Apollo 11 First Steps Edition. So this is the same film essentially that came out to major movie theaters in the early spring. It's just a 45-minute cut. So this brand new audio and video clips that have never been released released before. Footage that really makes you feel like you're in the moment of that mission. So leading up, the training, through the launch and the landing, you get that full story.
Well, and the visuals, I mean, this footage was shot on 70 millimeter film, so it looks like it was shot today. The visuals are just so incredibly clear. The sound is amazing, and the color, I mean, like I saw it a couple months ago when it was in theaters, and I can't wait to see the First Steps edition, just because, you know, I have to see all of these things. But the quality of the picture looks like something that was shot today. So definitely check out Apollo 11. It's, I think, the best documentary on Apollo, period.
And we'll continue to show it through the summer. So just in case you can't be here in July, doesn't mean you miss out on all of these things. We've got the exhibits up and going now, and we intend to run them through the remainder of the summer too.
Excellent.
Of course, we've talked about this before, but the Landing on the Lawn event,
yes,
which is our big celebration on the 20th. This will be community focused. It's a free event for families. There'll be moon and theme-based activities from lots of community organizations. To name a few, we've got the Hutch Recreation Commission, the Hutchinson Community College. We'll have the Hutch Zoo out here, the Hutchinson Public Library, Stratica, the Reno County Museum.
Wow.
The list goes on and on. We'll have food trucks and music. Fun. And then at the end of the event, towards the evening, once it's dark, we'll show an outdoor movie of the landing. So the CBS footage on an outdoor screen, and then a documentary. And then we'll have planet and moon observing with our science educators. So you can make a full evening of it.
Cool. That's
6 to 11:30 on the 20th of July.
Okay.
We'll have lots of other activities that week leading up to it, a guest speaker, an author, a book discussion, some additional musical performances, moon themed. So I encourage everyone to keep an eye on our website and watch our e-blasts for information on those. We also participate through the summer in Blue Star museums. So this is free entrance for military families.
Awesome.
If you have questions about that, I encourage you to call our box office at 620-665-9312. Ask them about participating in that program with us through the summer. And then also for Father's Day, we're offering our Father's Day BOGO again. So this is buy one mission pass, get dad in for free.
Sweet. That's a great deal.
Yeah, it really is. And you can see so much and do so much this summer here with us. So we think it's a pretty good deal, generally speaking, but particularly this summer.
Definitely. And the Apollo 11, the scavenger hunt, I'm really excited to do that. I won't have time today, but next time I'm out in June, I plan on doing the scavenger hunt.
I could give you the highlight tour real quick.
Okay, sounds good. Well, Carla, that's it for this month. Next month, we'll have you back on again. I'm sure there's going to be some more details for events throughout the summer. So looking forward to having you back.
Thanks for having me, John.
Thank you for listening to the Cosmosphere podcast. Make sure you share and subscribe to the show. If you enjoyed today's episode, leave us a review on iTunes. They're crucial to the success of podcasts, so we'd appreciate it if you could take just a minute to leave a rating or review. They help more people find out about the podcast and the museum. For the Cosmosphere, I'm John Molnix.